Now, there's a bill making its way through the House addressing a big controversy in Washington. On executive authority, it would require the president to enforce laws passed by Congress, signed into law, but the White House already saying President Obama, he'd veto this bill if it ever arrived on his desk. What does Republican Senator Rand Paul think about that? Fresh off a CPAC win, sir, good morning to you.
Good morning, Bill. Thanks for having me.
You back this bill on the Senate side. Congress has the legal authority to sue the president. Why is this even an issue?
Well, you know, the number one question I get when I go home or when I'm out traveling around the country is, how can the president amend legislation? How can he do this without the permission of Congress? Because he seems to be writing his own laws whenever he feels like it. The problem is we can't sue him because we don't have standing in court. So the legislation that I've introduced in the Senate would actually give us standing so we could sue and say, hey, this is unconstitutional. Because right now, if we go to court against the president, they throw the case out. So we do need standing. He also does need to enforce the law. We write laws, and he's just deciding willy-nilly. If he likes it, he enforces it. If he doesn't, he won't enforce it. And we really think he needs to be chastened, rebuked, and told that he needs to obey the Constitution.
What the White House would argue is that that's executive privilege, that you have to amend amend laws, as they progress to make sure that the laws work. What do you think about that?
I don't think that's a proper understanding of the Constitution. Really, Madison wrote that if we were to allow the president to write legislation or amend legislation, that would be a form of tyranny. So, no, that's not what our founding fathers intended by this. The executive is supposed to dutifully enforce the laws, and he's not supposed to cherry pick which laws he likes and which he doesn't. So I think if this can eventually make it into court, we'll win. But part of the question is, how do we get this into court?
We know the president can refuse to defend the constitutionality of a statute, even one that he signs into law. Mr. Speaker, that is a lot of power. What are we to do when that amount of power is not enough? If a president can change some laws, can he change all laws? Are there any laws under your theory that he actually has to enforce?
Wow, very volatile, heated on the Hill yesterday. Republicans getting tired of watching President Obama sidestep the laws that they have worked to pass and put into legislation. So now we're starting to see some serious pushback on this. Yesterday, the House voted to bring their grievances over this hot-button issue to the courts, making it possible for them to sue the president. The president says, surprise, surprise, that he would veto that bill. South Carolina Congressman Trey Gowdy is Republican on the House Oversight and Government Reform Committee, and he joins us. Welcome back to the program, Congressman. Good to have you here today.
Thank you.
You were very fired up about this on the floor of the House yesterday. How do you see this actually working, if it possibly could, to have the ability to sue the President of the United States?
You know, Martha, I was sitting on the floor yesterday by a guy named Tommy Cotton, who's running for the Senate in Arkansas. He's running against a guy named Senator Mark Pryor. So I reject the notion that it's necessarily dead on arrival. The bill was introduced in the Senate this morning. There are already 20-some-odd co-sponsors. To me, it's not a political issue. Do you think the chief executive should have to actually enforce the law? I would think every member of the House and Senate would support that.
You know, of course, the White House says, look, these are executive privileges. Every president has used them. In fact, some have used them more often than this president.
Well, I would make 2 points to that. First of all, I would compare and contrast the remarks of Senator Barack Obama from those of President Barack Obama, because he had a very different view when he was in the legislative branch. And secondarily, I agree with Jonathan Turley, who is no flaming conservative, I might add. This level of lawlessness is unprecedented. Yes, the Democrats were mad at Bush about things, and I'm sure when I was a kid not following politics, people were mad at the president about things. But this level of not enforcing the law, you just did a piece on the Affordable Care Act. 20-some-odd waivers, exemptions, and delays in a law that was written with specificity and particularity. How do you explain that?
I mean, Americans remember how hard it was to get that law through Congress and how particular it was in terms of what was in the law, and that it all had to be passed, that it couldn't be amended, it couldn't be changed. And you're right, those are facts, that the president has changed it many times, and we just watched another change come through over the course of this week. But, you know, you bring up Jonathan Jonathan Turley, and we spoke with him as well. He clearly believes that this is a moment that we could look back on and rue in terms of the amount of flexibility that the executive branch was given. And he said you have to get the courts involved. Where are the courts on this issue? And have you spoken to them about it?
Well, the courts don't like to get involved in political issues, but they do. And if you don't want to get involved in complicated constitutional issues, you probably shouldn't become a judge with subpoenas. Courts routinely enforce subpoenas that the legislative branch issues with respect to the executive branch. There are lots of cases wherein a legislative branch has sued the executive branch. The issue becomes one of standing. And what this bill yesterday asserts is that as a body, as an institution, we have standing. I'm not talking about 3 or 4 members of the House who aren't happy with how a vote goes. I'm talking about when something passes Congress, what other remedy do we have to get the executive to actually enforce what we passed? And the purse is not. That's a punishment. Impeachment is a punishment. What if you want the law enforced, like mandatory minimums? What is your remedy except to go to court?
It's a very interesting move that you all are making. And you say, I mean, it sounds like you don't think there's any chance of it until potentially after the November election, if indeed the Republicans take back the Senate.
Well, I was surprised that 5 Democrats in the House voted for it yesterday, and that was courageous. And I think what they did is they looked at this bill as a member of the people's House or a member of the Senate instead of as a Republican or Democrat. And if you look at it, from a separation of power standpoint, how can you not vote for something that says, Mr. President, you have to follow the Constitution? He doesn't have to sign the bill, Martha.
Yeah.
He doesn't have to defend its constitutionality. But with the Affordable Care Act, not only did he sign it, he went to the Supreme Court to great lengths to argue it's legal, and he's still not following.
We got to go. But Turley said the Founding Fathers assumed that each branch would have such a strong instinct for self-preservation that you wouldn't need to do this. But it turns out to be perhaps not true. Trey Gowdy, thank you very much. Always good to have you here.
Thank you.